Brad Pitt, the Hollywood superstar known for his iconic roles and grounded perspective, recently shared a story that has left fans and skeptics alike speechless. At a private event in Malibu, he witnessed something so extraordinary it seemed straight out of the Bible. A mysterious man, unassuming and calm, turned ordinary water into exquisite wine before a crowd of stunned onlookers. Brad's recounting of the event was raw, emotional, and filled with disbelief, leaving everyone wondering, could this really be a modern-day miracle? Brad's retelling wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was raw, filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. As he described the events, you could sense his hesitation. How do you explain something that defies logic, even in a world as surreal as Hollywood? This wasn't just a story about the miraculous. It was a tale about faith, skepticism, and the profound impact of experiencing the unexplainable. It all began at a private charity event in Malibu, where Brad Pitt was among the A-list attendees. The setting was elegant but casual, an intimate gathering overlooking the ocean. The event wasn't overly publicized. It was more of a networking opportunity for philanthropists, actors, and entrepreneurs who wanted to make a difference. Brad had been going through a reflective phase in his life. With his acting career thriving and his personal life slowly stabilizing after years of turmoil, he found himself searching for something deeper, a sense of purpose beyond fame and fortune. He didn't know it yet, but that evening would deliver an answer he never anticipated. As the night unfolded, the atmosphere was lively but comfortable. People mingled, laughter filled the air, and glasses of wine flowed freely. But as the hours passed, an unexpected issue arose. There wasn't enough wine to keep the party going. The caterers, caught off guard by the high demand, were scrambling to find a solution. Brad noticed the murmurs and mild frustration building among the guests. Some joked about the situation, while others began subtly leaving. But amid the mild chaos, a stranger stepped forward, a man whose presence Brad hadn't noticed until that moment. The man was unassuming, dressed plainly in a simple white shirt and jeans. He didn't fit the mold of a typical Malibu partygoer, and yet there was something about him, his calm demeanor, his quiet confidence, that made him impossible to ignore. Brad observed as the man approached the catering staff and quietly spoke with them. What happened next seemed like a scene from a movie. With no theatrics or grand gestures, the man requested several large containers of water to be brought out to the gathering. The staff, though puzzled, complied, bringing out jugs and pitchers filled with water. The guests were curious, watching as the man took one of the containers and bowed his head for a moment, as if in silent prayer. Brad, standing a few feet away, felt an inexplicable pull to pay attention. The atmosphere around the man seemed to shift, subtly at first, then undeniably. When the man finished his prayer, he gestured for one of the staff members to pour a glass from the container. What should have been water now shimmered with a deep crimson hue. The first sip caused the server's eyes to widen in astonishment. "It's wine," the server stammered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. The murmurs of disbelief spread quickly. Brad stepped closer, unsure if he was witnessing a clever trick or something far greater. He took a glass himself, tasting the liquid. It wasn't just wine. It was extraordinary, better than anything he had ever tried. The room fell into a hushed silence as word spread about what had just occurred. Guests began whispering, pointing, and crowding around the mysterious man. Some were excited, others skeptical, but everyone was drawn to him. Brad, known for his grounded perspective and logical thinking, felt a strange mix of emotions, disbelief, curiosity, and a growing sense that this moment was far more significant than a simple party trick. The man, however, remained humble and composed. He didn't bask in the attention or explain himself. Instead, he quietly stepped away, as if his work was done. Brad couldn't help but follow him, compelled to ask the question burning in his mind. "Who are you?" The man turned, offering a small smile. "Just someone who believes in the impossible," he replied before disappearing into the crowd. For Brad, the evening was no longer about the charity event, the glamour, or even the wine. It had become a turning point, a moment that challenged everything he thought he knew about the world and his place in it. What happens when someone like Brad Pitt, rational, grounded, and deeply reflective, encounters something that defies all logic? Stay tuned as we explore how this miraculous event begins to unravel his understanding of faith, life, and the extraordinary possibilities that surround us every day. The charity event didn't end with a toast or a round of applause. Instead, it left the guests in a state of quiet bewilderment. Brad Pitt, like many others, couldn't shake what he had just witnessed. The taste of the wine lingered on his palate, but even more so, the weight of the moment lingered in his mind. As the night wound down, Brad tried to rationalize the event. Perhaps it was an elaborate trick, a clever illusion orchestrated to dazzle the crowd. But the man's demeanor didn't fit. He wasn't seeking attention or applause. In fact, he seemed almost reluctant to take credit for what he had done. When Brad returned home that night, he replayed the scene over and over in his head. The quiet prayer, the transformation of water to wine, the look of serenity on the man's face. It all felt too real, too unexplainable. For a man who had spent his life in the limelight, surrounded by artifice and illusion, Brad found himself confronted with something utterly genuine. Over the next few days, Brad's thoughts were consumed by the mysterious stranger. He began asking questions, reaching out to others who had been at the event. Many shared his bewilderment, but no one seemed to know who the man was or where he had come from. Driven by a need to understand, Brad dove into research. He revisited the Bible, a book he hadn't seriously looked at since his childhood. The story of Jesus turning water into wine at a wedding in Cana leapt off the page. It was uncanny. The parallels between the ancient account and what he had witnessed were undeniable. Brad found himself questioning everything. Could this man have been some modern-day prophet? Was it possible that miracles still happened in today's world, or had he simply been caught in a moment of clever theatrics? The more he pondered, the more he felt a pull to seek answers not just about the man, but about himself. Weeks later, Brad found himself back in Malibu, walking along the beach. It was a quiet evening, the kind he often sought out when he needed clarity. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the ocean. As he strolled along the shoreline, lost in thought, he saw someone sitting on a weathered wooden bench overlooking the water. It was him, the stranger from the event. Brad's heart raced. This was his chance to find answers. Approaching cautiously, Brad hesitated before speaking. "I've been looking for you," he said, his voice carrying both curiosity and urgency. The man turned, his expression calm and welcoming. "I thought you might be," he replied with a slight smile. Brad sat down beside him, the waves providing a soothing backdrop to their conversation. "What happened that night?" he asked directly. "I can't stop thinking about it. Was it a trick? Some kind of illusion?" The man shook his head. "It wasn't a trick," he said simply. "It was a reminder." "A reminder of what?" Brad pressed. "That the extraordinary still exists," the man replied. "That even in a world consumed by logic and doubt, there's room for faith and wonder." Their conversation deepened, touching on topics Brad hadn't discussed in years. Faith, purpose, and the meaning of life. The man didn't preach or lecture. He simply listened and responded with quiet wisdom. "You've spent your life playing roles," the man observed. "But who are you when the cameras are off, when the world isn't watching?" The question struck Brad deeply. He realized how much of his identity had been tied to his career and public image. But beneath it all, he had always felt a yearning for something more, a sense of meaning he couldn't quite articulate. "What does this all mean?" Brad asked, his voice almost a whisper. The man looked out at the horizon. "It means that even the smallest moments, a sip of wine, a chance encounter, can be the start of something transformative. It's not about understanding everything. It's about being open to the possibility of more." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Brad felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The man didn't offer definitive answers or grand revelations. Instead, he left Brad with a seed of thought, a nudge toward exploring his own faith and purpose. When Brad finally turned to thank him, the bench was empty. The man had vanished as quietly as he had appeared. In the days that followed, Brad began to notice the world differently. The mundane seemed infused with meaning, and moments of quiet reflection became opportunities for gratitude and wonder. He didn't claim to have all the answers, but he no longer felt the need to. Brad Pitt's story isn't just about witnessing a miracle, it's about the impact of that moment on his life. Whether you believe the event was a divine act or a beautifully orchestrated coincidence, the message remains the same. Sometimes the extraordinary breaks into our ordinary lives to remind us of something greater. So, what do you think? Could such moments still happen today? Or is this just a Hollywood tale with a twist? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Watch our next video in pictures